You know, every century has that one thing, that one force that completely reshapes the world. For the 20th century, you could say it was oil and globalization. Well, the 21st, it belongs to climate change. And it's not just an environmental issue anymore, not by a long shot. It's become the single biggest driver of global instability. The problem is, the main framework we're all using to manage it, ESG, is dangerously out of date. And to really get why, we need to look at the paradox at the very heart of our approach.
And this quote, it just nails that paradox perfectly. It highlights this massive blind spot in how we see risk. Because right now, we are literally using a tool designed for spreadsheets to try and solve a problem that threatens the security of the entire planet.
So, to really get why this is such a huge deal, we've got to go back to basics and understand the tool we built in the first place. What exactly is ESG, and what was it even designed to do?
Right, so ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. And you have to remember, it was created for a world we thought was stable, a world where change was kind of slow and predictable. Its whole job was to help investors figure out how sustainable a company was, mostly for financial reasons.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this slide basically lays out the entire worldview that's baked right into ESG. It sees climate as just another variable in a business plan. It assumes our political and economic systems are fundamentally stable, and it assumes you can measure risk one company at a time. I mean, these were pretty reasonable assumptions for a completely different era. Okay, so while the market was busy looking at things that way, a completely different perspective was taking shape over in the security community. They weren't seeing climate change as a variable. They saw it as something far, far more dangerous.
They call it a threat multiplier. And this is a crucial concept to grasp. It means climate change doesn't just create new problems out of nowhere. What it does is it finds existing problems, things like poverty or water shortages or political tensions, and it just pours gasoline on them, making them way more likely to explode.
And look, this isn't some new radical idea for them. This timeline shows that the security world has been tracking this for decades. The CIA started looking at climate's global impact way back in the 70s. By 2009, they had a whole center dedicated to it. And today, it's just standard practice. It's a core part of military planning for the Department of Defense and for NATO.
And this slide just brilliantly shows you how this plays out in the real world. Think about it. Water scarcity in the Middle East, that fuels geopolitical tension. Food systems getting hammered by climate shocks, that was a major trigger for the Arab Spring. We're not talking about environmental risks anymore. These are hard-nosed security threats, plain and simple.
So what we've got here are two totally different ways of looking at the world, the market view and the security view. And the gap between them? Well, it's created this massive, really dangerous blind spot.
This is it. This is the absolute heart of the problem. ESG is looking at individual companies using data from the past and treating climate like it's a compliance issue. You know, did you file the right report? The security reality looks at entire systems, tries to anticipate future shocks, and treats climate as a survival issue. They're not even speaking the same language.
And this is the scary part. A company can check every single ESG box. I mean, perfect scores, net zero, great governance, the whole shebang. But if the country it operates in collapses because of a drought or mass migration, none of that matters. Its operations will fail. And ESG, as it is right now, has no way of seeing that coming.
And let's be crystal clear. This blind spot isn't just some academic debate. It creates a false sense of security. It makes markets fundamentally misprice risk on a massive scale because they're measuring the wrong things. It's like they're busy checking the ship's paint job while we're heading straight for an iceberg.
Okay, so what do? We can't just throw ESG out the window, right? The answer is we need to build something better. We need a new architecture, one that's actually capable of seeing the world as it really is.
Look, the idea isn't to just scrap everything we've done. This is all about evolution. We need to take the foundational data we get from ESG and fuse it with that strategic, big-picture perspective from the security world.
So how does this fusion actually work? Well, you can think of it like building in layers. You start with the ESG data we already have. Then you layer on top of that the hard climate science and geospatial data. Then you add in analysis on geopolitics and conflict. And what you end up with is a powerful system-level intelligence that finally sees the whole picture.
And when you start looking through this new lens, all these connections that were totally invisible before just pop into view. You suddenly see that a company's stability is completely tied to the political stability of the region it's in. You see how a nation's fragility is now a primary business risk. You start looking at future shocks, not just past performance.
A shift like this changes everything. It's not just about a new metric or a better report. It is a completely new strategic worldview. Because what this all boils down to is that sustainability isn't what it used to be. It's not about polar bears and planting trees anymore. It's about strategy. It's about security. It's about stability.
They're one and the same now. If you were talking about climate risk, you are, by definition, talking about security risk. And if you're talking about security risk, things like state collapse, conflict, migration, then you are absolutely 100% talking about economic risk.
Which leads us to the final, really critical idea here. In the 21st century, sustainability isn't just some nice goal to have. It is the very foundation of global stability. So we're living in a world that is fundamentally changed, a world where the climate is the main driver of instability. And the question we have to ask ourselves is simple, but it's also incredibly urgent. Have our tools changed with it?